Alex and welcome to my channel. I am so excited for this video today. Hi. Welcome to a ramble about walking and the philosophy of walking. I know, I don't know if you're on the 10,000 steps a day wave, but it's gonna become a new, 10,000 steps a day keeps the doctor away. I've been doing it, and walking around because I was highly sedentary at work and I love walking. So I hope that you can just relax with me and put this on in the background if you're doing something more interesting, or going for a walk. It's gonna be really kind of rambly, so yeah. Hope you're having a great day or night wherever you are, and staying warm and dry. So I'm basing this talk on a book that I read recently. It's called The Philosophy of Walking by Friedrich Groh. Forgive me if I pronounce his name wrong. He's French. I believe that the S in his last name is silent, but I don't know. I'm gonna call him Friedrich in this video. So, Friedrich. I really enjoyed this book. It was a really easy read. It does not go very deep at all. So, if you are looking for a deep dive on walking, this might not be the book for you. Reading this feels more like kind of canoeing down a river, stop over here, oh look, a turtle. You read those kind of books. It's just meditative. So each chapter is pretty short and it focuses on like an aspect of walking. So it's not like a full body philosophy of walking. It's just like certain aspects of it. In addition to the kind of meditations on aspects of walking, there's chapters that focus on people. These figures include Rousseau, Rimbaud, Kant, and Nietzsche. Those were my favorite parts of the book. To keep it fresh and personal, I really want to talk about like two ideas. The first one is that we are in nature like a completely different person than we are outside of nature, and that this is a good thing and an important thing, and like you should meet the version of yourself that is in nature. And the second thing is that walking, this is exciting to me, walking can be intellectual, creative, or spiritual because it connects things. So I'm gonna ramble about both of those and also tell like personal anecdotes along the way. So thank you for watching this, and let's just jump right into the first idea. So we are different people in nature. Have you ever heard of the phrase touch grass? Touch grass. It usually applies to somebody who is being angered or upset by a kind of complex identity construction. So they could be raging at a video, like something that's made up, right? And that places your identity in something hyper man-made, right? And fictional. So they could be raging at a video game. They could be ranting against somebody in class. When we say touch grass, we really mean like go outside and reconnect with the fundamentals that put everything else into perspective. So like have some perspective. And nature is kind of the focal point, and then you can judge everything else based off that. So it's another way of calling somebody out for going too far into something that isn't real, right? Quote unquote real. And that's like, I want to talk about that too, because we're saying basically that nature and like grass is real. That's a real thing that you should interact with, right? You're real, and I'm real. Nature is real, but the way that you or I might perform our identities online, or the work, drama that we encounter, that kind of thing, that might not be quote unquote real, because we've made up that system completely. Like, we didn't make up grass, but we did make up college and a 9-to-5 job and paying taxes. Like, when you get too caught up in that, it's like touch grass, right? So this is not in the book at all, but the author does acknowledge something really intuitive and kind of fundamental, which is that going for a walk in nature, going to touch grass, is an escape from the matrix of BS that we have built. And going for a walk is like a return to being an animal. Just being an animal, right? Being yourself back in nature. Okay. Also, kind of within this point, I want to talk about how we as people have built these industrial and creative societies that, or within them, right, our identities hinge more and more on how we kind of take up digital space, non-physical space. The big truck. Anyway, what was I saying? Okay, so we've made up these societies that are pretty creative, and they're industrial, and so they rely on industry, and we hinge our identity on more and more the digital infrastructure. So, you know, stuff that's quote unquote not real. And then two, I would say looking around, the vast majority of us in this system, we do not need to or do not get to be outside most of the day. We just don't need to be outside. So there's like a weird tension here, you know? We have these job titles like illustrator, lawyer, developer, and sometimes levels too, like a senior designer, like a junior designer, right? Like level 1, 2, 3. We have, you know, these customers, clients, shoppers. We have built conceptual complexity to the max. Conceptual, a concept. And we have digital and like physical architecture that facilitates this, right? Like, if you're a student, you go to school in a physical school. If you're a lawyer, you go to a physical courthouse, that kind of thing. You got a job, you go to work. So the inside, as opposed to the outside, is where we act out our identities, you know, like usually our economic identities, even our social identities. Like, you have parent-teacher conferences in the classroom, work events inside of the office, you travel, you be a tourist to other countries in a plane or a car, that type of thing. So I think it is safe to say that the average person wakes up every day in their bed, they get in their car or the bus, and they go to work or to school, and then they might go to like the grocery store or the gym, you know, and then they come home. So for many days of the year, nature is quite literally just the air that is between your car or the bus and like the gym. You know what I mean? It's kind of the trees around your office. It's the scenery outside your car, or like the block around your house if you're walking your dog or that type of thing. Got a cup of green tea. Check this out. Side note, I'm on a detox. Like I love coffee, but I've been pounding coffees, and I gotta give it a break. So I'm having green tea. Anyways, as I was saying, so I think it's safe to say that to kind of in that scheme, that nature has become a hobby, and there's so many different interesting hobbies that hinge on nature, right? Like you could ski, rollerblade, you know, what have you, hiking, you could go canoeing, river rafting, so most of us kind of go for walks intentionally, and like hobbies are an intentional choice, and people spend money on equipment and things like that, like camping, right? If you were going to make a philosophy of walking, I think for the average person, walking is an intentional act, or at least that's such a hallmark of like contemporary living, is like you're, especially if you go on a long walk, like you're choosing these moments that are not at your desk. And when you're not at your desk, you're not a student or an employee, right? Your resume does not exist on your walk. There is no complex identity system. It doesn't matter if you have credit card debt. You're just a person on a walk. So walking is such a liberation from society, in a lot of ways. Of course, too, like when you walk in nature, that's kind of the easiest form of escapism. There's usually no buildings or parking lots, and you get to be around trees. So your identity as like a real estate agent or a cook doesn't matter. What matters is like the temperature. If the sun is out, if there is a bear, if there's a bear next to you or not, like that's important, right? If you have water, that's important. Your emotions, like if you're angry, so you're a different person, or you get to prioritize a different set of characteristics within you when you go on a walk, because your needs and desires are different, the environment's different. I think that might be what it comes down to, is like the environment. So that is walking in nature, but what about a city? What about like society, you know? In a city, it's harder to leave your identity behind, because people are gonna react to how you look, or dress, or how you move. And in some places, walking around can actually make people uncomfortable, especially you walk through certain neighborhoods and you're gonna have people kind of looking out the window, you know, they think you're up to something. I actually was living with my mom in a neighborhood when I was in college, and it had sidewalks and stuff, but people didn't really walk around there. People just stayed in their home. It was in a suburb, and for some reason that was just the culture. And I went on a walk once, and I checked this kind of communal mailbox, where you've got different places for your mail. I got my mail, and I was walking back home, and some neighbors came out of their house, and they confronted me, and they asked what I was doing, and they asked if I lived there, and they were really confrontational. And it turns out there had been a number of car break-ins in the neighborhood, and so even though I was walking around at like noon holding mail, and I looked terrible, I had like a ponytail in, and I was wearing like ill-fitting clothes and bright purple shoes. It was just weird. They confronted me because they thought that I was like up to no good, and it's because that's unusual. Like, no one walks around. It's like, what are you doing? So when you're walking around in certain places, it can kind of be uncomfortable. Yeah, like walking around sometimes is seen as you don't have a job, you don't have a home, I don't trust you, what are you doing? And you might get stared at. So you could also, in certain situations, be limited to walking in a park because your neighborhood is not safe to walk in, or it might not have sidewalks. And there are plenty of examples of areas that have zero walkabilities, just nothing, or if you want to walk, you have to cross like a 4-lane highway to get to a shop. So walkable areas, like as a concept, like walkability, at least in like, USA megacity, those places to live there are more expensive because having shops and wide sidewalks and benches is kind of a sign that the rent is really high, or that the area is affluent, so it drives the price up. So I think though, even in these city settings, you can still leave some of your identity behind when you go for a walk, because you are encountering the external world head on, and you can't control if it starts raining or if your feet hurt. You're just walking, you're just getting away. You kind of get to be anybody when you go for a walk. Nobody knows who you are, Another super interesting idea, kind of the part 2, is that walking is intellectual or creative or spiritual because it connects things. And I love the idea. Like, have you ever heard the phrase walk it off? Like, walk it off. It's usually a response to somebody who is really upset and they're not handling it well. And we tell them to walk it off because, one, it means that they should remove themselves from the situation, but two, because walking is a great way to think, and it's actually a way that we process our emotions and information. This is so interesting to me because when I think of somebody smart or engaged in thinking, immediately the thinker comes to mind, the actual statue, because it's a person, they're sitting, there's stillness. I also think of a library, a study. Somebody is kind of in this mental cave of learning, and they're surrounded by these ideas, and stillness is required in silence. So in thinking about that, my favorite parts of the book were the chapters on people or men, sorry, that's just the book, it just had men in it. So were the chapters on these men who for whom walking was an important part of their lives and their process for thinking. So, for example, I did not know that Nietzsche would spend as much time or more walking than riding. The time when he walked the most saw an explosion in his creative output. So, the study, the office, these images are like great for thinking about, being intellectual and thinking, because these spaces, they shut out the outside world. They shut out the world, but so does going outside. So does nature. That shuts out the world and the digital noise, right? So the act of physically walking not only releases all these, good chemicals like serotonin, I think it does, but it kind of makes your brain go into this meditation, because you're just on a walk, and then your brain is able to come up with ideas. You can remember, you can go through your memories, and you can process your emotions, like something that's happened to you, where you can really listen. So you can put in a podcast and really hear it, or a piece of music, and really feel it when you're walking. I want to mention something like a personal anecdote, but I am currently moving. I'm in the process of moving. I am leaving my old place behind where I live now, because it's 50 minutes away from the city, and it's not walkable. It's really rural, and it used to be walkable because it is rural, right? It's just hills and fields and nature, and I used to like to walk around, but as it turns out, here's some gossip for you. Here's some rural gossip for you. It turns out that where I live is right next to a landfill, and I didn't know it. And this landfill, it is, I think, something wild, like it's almost double or triple over full. So when a dump gets full, you have to close it and move on. This thing was full, and they kept putting trash in it. So not only does it smell terrible now because it's way over full, but extra gossip. This landfill is unique because it's experiencing a chemical anomaly that is, you can't explain it, and they don't know what to do about it, but essentially the trash inside of the earth is 200 degrees. So it's low-key on fire inside of the ground. And so it's releasing chemicals I couldn't even begin to tell you what might be on fire in there. And I won't describe the smell because, ASMR trying to be relaxing, but human beings should not breathe this air. So this beautiful place, it's really nice, but I don't want to walk around in that. I don't think anybody should be breathing that in. So I was already thinking of moving, just so I could be closer to everybody that I hang out with and everywhere that I go. And this really made my choice for me. Climate change and man-made devastation. Maybe I'll say that. Man-made devastation of nature is not in this book. And the reason why I'm using man-made, because when I talk about climate change, I don't mean natural change in climate. I mean human-induced change in the environment. And that's on a mass scale and a local scale. That is not talked about in this book. And I couldn't quite understand why, or at least if I was writing a book on walking, I would mention it. It's probably not talked about in the book because these are conditions in which you can't really walk, right? It kind of cancels out walking, but I think part of the idea of walking. So like if it's Arizona, USA, and it's summer and it's 110 degrees outside, like you shouldn't be walking around. I hope you're not, And where I live now, it could be a beautiful day outside, but I shouldn't walk around and breathe that air. So walking, also to a large degree, is actually an inside activity. This book doesn't mention the gym, the treadmill, walking paths, even though I think this is how a lot of people have to walk nowadays. I think people are pressed for time and it gets dark and they're off work, so they just walk at the gym, that type of thing. So we have this romantic idea of going on a long hike, walking in the wilderness, encountering nature, like unbothered nature, wild nature. And I think holding on to that idea, like romantically, is important. Like valuing it makes it valuable. But I think it might be rarer as we move forward, and for some people it's really difficult to access. So I think to have a book about walking and not include like the mall walker, the gym goer, the work from home people, and these implications philosophically is like a huge miss for the book. Personally, I signed a new lease in a different area. It doesn't have sidewalks, funny enough, but the streets are really wide, and so you see people walking in the road, and cars kind of go slowly through there. For my own personal walking, I also have a walking pad because it's California, and the summer is just too much to be doing that. And I have a membership to my local gardens. And some big cities have these, like they're usually run by, sometimes they're private, but cities also have gardens, and some of them you can get a membership and you can use them and like walk in them, which is what I do. I paid a one-time fee for the year, and then now I go like every day and I walk. And I like that because it's safe and there's no cars, and you can buy coffee in the garden and like sit and read, and it's just safe. It's nice. No one's confronting me for walking around. And anyway, yeah, I love it. So there are ways to walk that include navigating a full-time job and kind of natural hazards, man-made hazards, and even though that isn't in this book, I recommend it because it's like a short romantic look at walking, going outside, and if anything it's kind of inspiring and locates some value that maybe would be good to hold on to as a society. So that's kind of it for me in this video. That was my ramble on walking. I love walking, and I'll read anything that's like a fun little book on it, so this was a good choice. And I hope that you are able to get outside in what capacity you can. Yes. So I am moving, right? For a little bit, will be making some very weird videos. I'm packing all my stuff, and I want to kind of show some things that I own as part of a video, and then I want to show like how I set up my new space and that type of thing. So there'll be a little bit less book content and a lot more live content. So I have a bunch of junk that I've gotten from antique malls and all that type of thing. So as I pack, I'm gonna be showing it off and saying, look at this piece of garbage. And then hopefully I'll be in a new place, in a few weeks, and then I can have like my study again and go back to making more kind of reading based, thought based content. So that's just where I am in life right now. It's exciting, but I'm very busy. So I can't wait to show you where I end up. Okay, I hope you're doing well, and I cannot wait to see you in the next video. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'll see you